Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the highly anticipated Explorer 2 Homage by Pagani Design. This is the PD 1682. The particular model I have with me today is the white dial version, commonly known as the Polar Explorer. I've been itching for Polar Explorer 2 for a long time, but I'm not at a stage of my life to spend that much money on a watch. So that only leaves me with homages, if I want a taste of it. As far as I knew, there weren't any good homages of that model out there. I was excited when I heard that Pagani Design was releasing a homage of this, and it seems like I'm not the only one. A quick check on the Pagani Design AliExpress store shows that they've sold more than 500 models in less than a month. Now that's almost unheard of for a watch above $100 on the platform. Full disclosure, the Pagani Design AliExpress store offered me a small discount to review this watch. I still purchased it with my own money, and my views today will be 100% objective. If you're interested in picking this up and supporting the channel, I'll leave my affiliate link in the description down below. If you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate if you become a subscriber of the channel. That will help me out a lot. I've managed to spend close to 1 month with this watch as my daily driver, and I hope I can cover everything about this watch so you can decide if this is the best Explorer 2 homage in the market for you. Let's get into the packaging. This watch comes in a black cardboard box. That's the standard packaging for all the Pagani Design watches I've had. You get an unsigned warranty card, a manual, and a polishing cloth. You also get a screwdriver that's too big to fit the bracelet screws, so I don't know why they've included that. Pagani Design also included a free Bond style NATO strap this time around, and that's a nice touch. Now onto the watch itself. It has a 42.5mm case, 50mm lug-to-lug, which protrudes out to 55mm if you include end-link to end-link. It has a 20mm lug width, it's 12.5mm thick, and on the supplied stainless steel bracelet, it comes in at 153 grams. It also has a water resistance rating of 100 meters, and you can get this on the AliExpress store for about $139, give or take, depending on if there's a sale. Here's what it looks like on my 6.5-inch wrist. It sits low and it has a good balance, but that long effective lug-to-lug measurement pushes the limit of what I can pull off on my wrist. The white dial also makes it appear a little bigger on my wrist compared to wearing similar black dial watches. Onto the specifications, and let's start with the case. This watch has a stainless steel case that's brushed on top and polished on the sides. The brushing is finely done and it looks very consistent throughout the case. The lines that separate the brush and polish finishes are sharp and well defined. The case also has a nice side profile that curves down slightly towards the lugs. It has a flat sapphire crystal with a cyclops above the date window at 3 o'clock. The crystal protrudes slightly above the bezel, and it does not have any AR coating on it, which is normally not as important on white dial watches as they normally create less reflections. The dial is a glossy stark white. I would say it's almost paper white. I've seen the real deal once in my life, and if memory serves me right, it looks about the same shade of white as that one was. On the dial, you'll find a printed Pagani Design branding below the 12 o'clock hour marker and 4 lines of text above the 6 o'clock hour marker. All the printing on the dial is really well done. They look crisp and consistent when you're looking at it normally. I also like the pop of color from the orange GMT text and how it matches the GMT hand. The handset and indices on this piece are of the same style as the watch it homages, and they come in a gunmetal grey style polish to enhance the legibility against the white dial. The indices are applied throughout with a combination of circles, rectangles, and a triangle at the 12 o'clock position. They're properly applied and I don't see any alignment issues throughout. The hands are Mercedes style and they are polished throughout. The GMT hand is painted in a glossy orange finish to differentiate it from the 3 main hands, allowing you to read the second time zone. While the color looks to be about the same, the shape of the hand here is different than from the original. Pagani Design seems to have put their own touch on this instead of making it a full-on coupage, borrowing a term from Gary of I Like Watches. The indices and hands look cleanly finished. I don't see any rough edges under normal use. They also fill with a new Lume formula by Pagani Design, which states it's an improvement over the earlier models. There's a cutout for the date window at the 3 o'clock position, and if you look closely, there's also a slightly stepped bevel on the cutout. I'm not a huge fan of that and how it appears once magnified by the cyclops. The bezel is a fixed 24-hour stainless steel bezel that allows you to track a second time zone. It has a nice radial brush finish and polished steps on the side. That combination creates a really subtle but beautiful effect when viewing it from various angles. The 24-hour markers are engraved and filled with black paint that looks very cleanly done. The finishing on this bezel, well, kudos to Pagani Design. It's amazing and it's so beautiful to look at. It's really a step above other watches at this price point. The lume on this piece glows in a blue hue once the lights are are off. Now I don't know what new formula Pagani Design are using, but it's definitely not BTW9. The Lume does not have a strong glow and does not last long. I've woken up in the middle of the night and found it barely legible a couple of times. This watch has a push-pull crown that's surrounded by crown guards and it measures in at about 6.9mm. I was kind of surprised they didn't go for a screw-down crown with this model, but I'm actually kind of liking the fact that it's not screwed down. It makes it much easier to hand wind the watch quickly when I need to get it running. Once the crown is unscrewed, you can hand wind the watch. Pulling it out one click allows you to adjust the date and GMT hand, and pulling it out to the last position hacks the second hand, allowing you to set the time. Strangely, I don't see a gasket on the crown like I find on other Pagani Design watches I've had. Based on experience, I've had no issues with the claim water resistance of their watches, so I'm going to take their word for it. But I just wanted to point that out to you anyway. On the back of the case, you'll find a display case back with the usual set of specifications around it. The display case back is a nice touch, and it gives you a glimpse at the GMT movement beneath. The movement powering this watch is the Pearl DG3804B. Now I know Pagani Design advertises this as the DG5833 GMT, but if you research online, you'll find that these are two very different models. This is an automatic GMT movement that comes with hacking and hand winding functions. It beats at 21,600 BPH, has 21 joules, and comes with a claimed 42-hour power reserve. Say what you want about the movement, but I love the way it looks. Now if you're getting your first mechanical watch, or if you're getting this for someone as their first, seeing this movement through the display case back is definitely going to ignite a love for mechanical timepieces. This is what's known as a desk or office GMT. The GMT hand can be independently set to track a second time zone, but it does not jump hours like some of its Swiss counterparts. I've had this movement in my Panis and Pagani Design GMT Master homages, and I've had zero problems. They keep time fairly well for the price, and they've never broken down on me. Now, there's a common issue a lot of people face with the movement, and that's that the GMT hand jumps forward slightly after you set the time zone when you're pushing in the crown. Now, to avoid this, turn the crown the other way around, about a quarter turn, to release the gears before pushing it back in. This will ensure the GMT hand does not jump forward as soon as you push the crown back in, and you have to go through setting the entire thing all over again. Onto the bracelet, and the PD1682 comes with an oyster bracelet that has solid end links. It's entirely brushed on the top and the sides, and it can be sized to your wrist easily as it uses a screw adjustment system. The bracelet links are fairly chunky at 3.3mm thick, but if you like solid and sturdy feeling bracelets, this is right up your alley. The end links are fit to the case perfectly, and they're well defined with very tight tolerances. There's almost no wiggle at all in the end link, and that's amazing for the price. The clasp is fully milled and features a double push release with a safety lock. It has a nice engraving of the Pagani Design text and comes with 3 micro adjustment slots. So what do I like about this watch? I definitely like the fit and finish of this watch. It's just on another level. The radial brushing on this bezel is a sight to behold. It's something I haven't seen done at this price point, and they've done it so well. I've spent some time comparing it with photos of the real deal, and honestly, it looks just as good to me. And the way it shines with the light in real life is something you need to see to know how good it looks. The brushing is also very consistent throughout the watch and bracelet. This consistent and continuous finish is normally only seen on much more expensive watches, and not something you see at watches around the $100 price range. Another aspect about this watch that I like is the legibility. The gunmetal grey polished hands and indices against the white dial make this a very legible watch in various lighting conditions. If you've had white dial watches before, you'll know that silver hands and markers usually get lost against white dials, especially in lower lighting conditions. The gunmetal grey finish is a nice touch to ensure you have good legibility in various lighting conditions. Lastly, I love the bracelet and the clasp. They look really nice and way better than competitors at this price point. The bracelet is nicely finished with good tolerances, and it doesn't feel sharp against the wrist. The clasp they have on this is a new style that's sleek and functional. I find the low profile very comfortable to wear on wrist, and it works fantastically well. It's not all unicorns and rainbows though. There are quite a few things I dislike about the watch. First up, let's talk about dial elements. The glossy hands look a bit cheap, and the indices and lume are darker on the 6, 9 and 12 o'clock hour positions. It keeps sending a signal to my brain that something does not look quite right, and it couldn't be unseen. Another thing that disappoints me is the proportions. The hands and indices are a bit too small compared to the size of this watch. The hands also suffer from SHS, which is shortness of hand syndrome. None of the minute, seconds or GMT hands quite reach the minute track. The hour hand would also look better if it reached out slightly more towards the indices. Now, speaking of the indices, they are too small for the dial and they look undersized. The small hands and indices makes it look like there's just a bit too much negative white space throughout the dial. The date window has a step that also looks very poorly finished on the macro. I find this very unnecessary and I think the date window would look much cleaner without it. Pagani Design said they've improved the Lume, but it's still nowhere near the competition. I've reviewed watches from Steel Life and Escapement Time that offered mind-blowing Lume right below the $100 mark. If Pagani Design wants to charge consumers more than $100 for their new models, they really need to include better Lume. Another thing that will surely disappoint the majority of people out there is the size. 40mm would have been the ideal size for this. I just find the 42.5mm size a bit too large. It doesn't wear too bad, but it just looks like you have a dinner plate on your wrist, especially if, like me, you have a wrist size of below 7 inches. Lastly, let's talk about value. I just don't see this offering the same value that Pagani Design watches are usually known for. Their earlier models came in well below the $100 mark and offered unbelievable specs for the price. This watch is double the price of the GMT Master Homage, and that has the same movement and a ceramic bezel. AliExpress usually has a lot of sales, so if you can get this at prices closer to $100, then I think you'd be getting fantastic value. So to sum up, what do I think of the Pagani Design Explorer 2 Homage? Well, the Polar Explorer 2 is one of the hottest watches around, and it just got hotter with Rolex announcing their new 2021 model a couple of weeks back. Pagani Design timed the release of their new Homage really well to coincide with the hype around that. If you're like me and you've been wanting to scratch the Explorer 2 itch for a while, this Pagani Design has definitely been worth the wait. Now that I've spent a couple of weeks with it and the honeymoon period has cooled down, I realized that it's not the perfect Explorer 2 Homage. But at around $130, I'm not expecting perfect. You're still getting a really well-made watch with excellent finishing, an automatic GMT movement, 100 meters of water resistance, and great looks for an affordable price. I hope Pagani Design can improve the minor issues they've had with this initial release and also release a 40mm size. If they manage to do that and keep the prices down, I think they're gonna have a runaway success on their hands. If you like the Explorer 2 design and you're in the market for the best homage of it at the moment, well, you're looking at it. Thank you so much for watching, and please do subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to check out my new videos. I will catch you guys in the next one.